1 year that we won in duo in Fortnite. So we're gonna play tonight until we win again. Let's go. Hey,
About time.
I'm sorry. I was getting everything ready.
I was on my stream. I was like, no, I'm just gonna dab until Jesse gets here.
You're gonna win.
I'm just gonna dab until Jesse gets here.
Oh, dab. Alright. Go. That's crazy, it's been a year already.
I know, yeah, it's crazy just to imagine how much this game has changed since.
Right. They definitely added quite a bit, and I feel like people have gotten a lot better, so it's gonna be a little bit harder to do.
Yeah, just a bit. We're also very rusty, and the map has changed so much that we don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
We'll find a way.
Probably should have, like, I don't know, messed around on Playground. Why am I... Okay, jeez.
Oh, was I supposed to be? I was supposed to be that skin, wasn't I? Oh well. What's the likelihood that we win the first time?
Yeah. This is just a practice round.
Yep. In my experience, I found that you have to warm up for like 5 games before you're good.
Oh, jeez.
Alright, I'll let you pick the first one.
Let's go Retail Row.
Alright.
It's the only name that I remember, but it's not too short.
It's the only one that's left. That isn't
the only one that's left. Alright, jump.
Alright. So I'm gonna land at a building towards the west side.
I'm going to also try to land at a building.
No, what you want to do is you want to land right in the street, because everyone will be so distracted in the houses. No one will know you're in the street.
The street is just free real estate, man. There are definitely people coming here, so...
Yes. A couple people I saw didn't have a skin on, so hopefully they aren't very good.
Hopefully they're noobs or they're like pretending to be noobs.
Well, I'd rather have them. I mean, if they're pretending, I feel like that's worse. Right, I can definitely feel the warm-up. I don't feel...
You don't feel confident yet?
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing...
I picked up the AK. I don't think that's not good, right? The AK.
AK, the heavy
I mean, it's better than nothing. I mean, it's better than nothing.
Is there somebody shooting at me? Oh, there's a guy right yep, there's a guy right outside here. Actually, can I hit him from here or not? Watch this.
What is that thing? What is that?
Oh, squirrel, that guy's weak.
Oh.
You wanna get over? Oh, you're not even near me here.
I'm not, sorry.
That's fine. Hey, I don't think they know where I am. Well, they're coming again.
I don't think I know where you are. Oh, they're coming for you.
Yeah, they're not gonna let me live. But you can still get my player card if you hurry over.
Collect your reboot card.
Reboot card.
Wait, is that like Apex, where you can pick up their...
Exactly like Apex.
Oh, wow. I suck. Oh, God.
Alright. Match 1.
Alright. Good first round. Let's keep going.
Yep. I think I'm gonna keep track of how many tries we do.
Alright. Just like mark it down on a post-it note.
No, I'm gonna put it right on the stream itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
-1. Okay, I don't know if I want it red. I think I want it red. I want it. Let's see. Let's have it.
You want to change skins while we're waiting?
Yes. And I'll have it.
Let me advertise this to Snapchat. Follow me if you're watching. Follow me on Snapchat. DJ_squirrel.
All right.
That's good.
Let's see here. Skin. Oh, you're going all classic.
Yeah.
The backpack. I don't remember which one's the right back bling. There it is.
It's not. Yeah, that one. 1 second.
Let's see, what pickaxe are you using? I don't remember what pickaxe we had.
Oh, I don't think that really matters. I just did. I have the. I can't remember what it. Let me look what it's called. 1 second.
I can't tell from our picture either. We didn't have our pickaxes, so.
Yeah, it was. What is mine? It's called Lug Axe.
Lug. There it is. Oh, that looks. Hey, do you want me to do that one?
I mean, it's whatever, man. Doesn't. I guess it's mostly the skin that matters.
I guess.
You know.
Yeah. Let's see. What's the one I have currently? I don't even know. Oh, that's the one. I'll keep the one I got.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think that the Lug Axe looks the coolest out of all the ones that I have. Otherwise, I have like the Rift Edge, which looks kind of cool, but doesn't really fit the way I'm looking. Otherwise, you got the Balloon Axe, and then the Lug Axe, and then just the regular pickaxe. So I think I'm just stick with what I got. All right, let's play.
Yes. I got this
Quit wasting time.
emote. Yeah, we got so many times we gotta play here.
Yeah. That's a really long emote.
Still going. It's like a different song now.
It's changed so much. I heard the pedal bus honk. Are we in the air already?
I don't think so.
Did they change it so that you can hear each other throughout this entire loading screen?
I think so. They got it pretty close if they didn't. Which is
Yeah. That is nice. Three seconds.
Okay.
We still don't getting that's gravity yet. Let's go. I want to try.
That's my vote, but okay, where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go there. I honestly, yeah.
Alright.
Come on.
For the win!
For the win!
Oh, somebody else is coming here. How? I don't understand why they're faster than me. They should not be faster.
We get the killing first.
That's true.
How many people? One, two. Oh
Yeah,
god!
two duos. I count two of them.
No, look to your right, dude. There is so many people coming here. Either that or there. Holy crap!
All
Yeah,
right.
I'm going off already here in this little alcove here.
What? I need you here, Squirrel.
Oh, someone landed right there. Holy crap! No, I'm sorry, dude.
Something down here. Nice shotgun. All right, where you at? Where you at, Squirrel?
I'm.
I gotta get out of here. There's so many people. There's so many people.
Oh lord, this is a bad decision.
What? I should have hid behind something.
There was some lag there. I heard the noise before you actually went down.
You wanna help me out here, Squirrel?
I don't have anything. I have 10 glider redeploys. That's it.
Well, you can come get me, I guess, after.
Me see if I can
There's so
find.
many people here, Squirrel. Maybe you could just like sneak in there with undetected. And
Maybe
take my
they'll just
thing.
like sneak to the end of the round. Yeah. I picked up some. There's already a chest here, so someone's already been in this area. Oh my god, I am
You're not gonna go for me?
destined for failure. I.
You gotta do it together.
We
I'd
do have
say
to do it
just
together.
pretend
Yeah.
like no one's there. Pick me up and run away. Maybe you'll get lucky. I just pick me up, turn around.
Oh my
and leave.
god!
Actually,
So
there's
wait,
a
where do we
reboot.
go?
The reboot van is right over to your
Oh,
north.
you have to go to the van.
Yep. Now hide when you get there. Hide on the north side of the van, the far side, so they can't see.
Oh,
you.
let me creep
Run.
through the grass.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
This is so dumb. Alright.
What are you doing? Oh, you gonna wait, or are you gonna go for it?
I'm just scared that when I open.
Oh, there's a guy. Just
Oh.
stay in the corner. Oh, he sees you.
Does he?
Yeah, he shot at you. Oh, he's doing that.
I'm sorry. No, just Scooter Games GTV. All right, I see how it is. I wonder if he's live streaming.
He might be. That's. I mean.
Oh,
That's in his team.
it honks whenever you. That's
You use
an
it.
interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
It's like that's the drawback from using it.
Yeah. Interesting. Scooter Games Twitch TV. I wonder if he's live streaming. I'll go see if Scooter Game. Oops.
I'm gonna quick adjust something real quick then too.
Scooter Games 2TV. He has 25 followers, so he's not much better than me at this whole Twitch thing.
Nice.
I mean, I'll give him a follow. Just be like, bitch. Just in a whisper. Alright. I doubt he'll recognize my name.
That's really funny. Okay. I have now... This might get awkward. So I like have a mouse setting on my mouse where I like I click it and my sensitivity goes up, and then I can click it again and it goes down. So
Oh, it's kind of like adjusting your DPI, I think it's called.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, I just don't know how I'm gonna how it's gonna work.
Yeah, how it's gonna be to your advantage.
Like what I want to do is I want to have high DPI when I'm far or like very close up with shotgun battles.
Right. Yeah.
And when I'm building. But if I'm farther away,
Yeah, definitely.
I want to have more of a steady hand to like.
Yeah, like with scope weapons. Yeah, I get you.
Your turn.
All right,
again.
my pick this time.
Oh shoot.
God, it's been. I've not done any. Let's try this. I've never been here. Frosty Flights.
Sure.
Make sure you thank the bus driver. I don't know why you put your barcode down there too. I don't understand.
I'm just showing you I am in agreement.
Okay.
Frosty
One thing that
Flights.
Apex.
Oh, go ahead.
There you go.
I was gonna say one thing that Frosty Flights is. It's nice if there isn't 8 people, and there usually isn't. But if there is somebody here, it's like there isn't that much here to like support them as many people. But
yeah. But yeah, what I was saying is one thing that Apex Legends did that was a pretty big game changer was like the introduction of like the jump team leader where they choose and then like everybody. Oh, one person's here. They went into the second hangar on the left. Going up this tower. hear a chest above here.
Okay.
Maybe. There's ammo. Is there...
Wait, is there not a chest here? I heard a chest.
There's a chest.
Well,
Yeets.
where?
Oh, God.
It was here. Where'd it go?
Alright, I got a...
Alright, where's that guy? You said he
saw
went to the
him
hangar?
using...
There's a guy down there. He's in a baller.
There's two of them. Both in the ball.
Okay.
Oh, there's more than just two. Shit. Rude.
Well, I heard shooting.
Alright, let's just...
Oh, he's coming up by me. Oh, there's a guy over there, too. Oh, he's coming by me. Running!
What is that? Was that the infantry rifle? Yes! God, everything is has... Every weapon I have has the same ammo. Except for that.
Where are you going, buddy?
Buried treasure.
I bet you he doesn't have anything. I'm chasing him. Get out of here. This is our turf. Get out of here.
Where'd he go?
He's gone.
Done? Is that you above me?
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
I am above.
You see anybody else?
No, they're gone.
Buried treasure is... They're gone? They all left, for sure?
Not for sure, but pretty sure.
I got buried treasure that's coming to the northeast-ish. I'll keep looking for other things, but...
Okay.
I'm not, how do you... Oh, this way.
Do you need
I
shield?
love the animations they have for these things now. Yeah, mini shield.
I can't really drop anything. I can pin it for you.
What is that? Did you just mark on the map that there is something for me to pick up?
Yep.
Is that what that is?
Yep.
Wow. Is that you that grappled?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Are you in a ball?
Yep. I'm trying to break these walls. There we go. That's how you do it.
You use a pickaxe like a normal person.
Oh, here's some more shield then.
I got some already.
But can you like take this though?
I mean, yeah.
Wait, I guess I could.
Balloons. And I want to find the buried treasure. I didn't know that was like a pivotal thing. No, I thought that was just an end game.
No. It's like
Ooh,
the
cool pistols. Do I want that?
also, yeah.
Chest.
Yep. Cool.
I think I'll take it for sure.
Anyway, the treasure chests were like kind of like the pirate theme.
Ah, yes, that makes sense.
Alright, where did my baller go? I think I left it up here somewhere. Actually, no, I left it and I broke everything.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but thank you, I think.
What?
And someone in my chat's like, Philip, you're such a bot. And I'm like, what the hell?
Do you know who it was?
No, the name is I like good 42. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to know what it means.
I think, well, 42 is a reference to the answer to life, so I guess referring to, like, it's a really deep, like, I like life, I guess, in a way?
Yeah, no. You got these shotgun shells?
I do, but not many.
Oh shit, the storm's here already, god.
Fantastic.
I'm bad at this.
Alright, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
You got a baller?
do not. Where did you find one? I'm
Probably,
lost. Oh my god.
Probably in the two hangars.
2 hangars.
Yep.
My god, get out of here. 2 hangars.
Yep, the 2 long hanger things.
I know what the hangars are. Is it called a baller?
It is called a bowler.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got one. I'm getting one.
Cool. Make your way. I have a med kit for you when you come back.
How do you grapple? Oh, I see.
You press
Shoot
the...
this guy.
Yeah. Oh, that didn't help. Oh, no.
Shoot it, damn it. Ah!
I didn't realize how far the storm was.
Why is nothing... You just like...
Also, you can boost. Jump, I think, is the boost. I don't know what it'd be on the PlayStation.
Yeah, it is.
You want to boost. Alright, are you, like, how far away are you?
I am... Hang on, hang on, how do I get up? Exit, hold. I got a jug. Holy crap, I'm back. Am I gonna survive? I don't know. Oh my god, I don't know if I'm gonna... Please. No! Damn it! No, I did not watch Endgame. I should've just went. Just go on without me.
No, I can't do that.
This is so bad.
Alright, so here's what I'm gonna do. It'd be easier. I'm just gonna...
Just revive yourself. Get out quick. Revive yourself.
Well, what I'm gonna do is wait for...
Oh! Oh! I forgot about that. Do that. Is that how healing you? Yes, it is. Barely. Okay, I'm coming over.
I'm gonna let you die.
Don't. Well, no. What?
And then I'm gonna pick up your reboot card.
Oh, the reboot card. I completely forgot about that.
As I slowly slide away. We'll have to get you more weapons, but you didn't have that great of weapons anyway. And then I'm gonna take this. And go like that. Alright. Oh, I didn't pick up all your ammo, but that's okay. Okay, let's go. Now I gotta have to somehow... Remind me to use that chug jug when I get down to 15 health, or when I get down like 20 health. Or I could revive you right here, but let's wait. Let's shoot for this one.
Yeah, can you go to any one that you want?
Yep.
Okay. It's the goofiest system of moving around in the map I've ever seen. Is the other one... Yeah, okay. So you don't need to worry about the chug jug anymore.
Well, I'm gonna have to use it. Whoops.
Wait.
Oh no, come on! Yeah, this is gonna have to be done quickly here. Can I use the chug jug, or do you want it for shield?
I mean, it also depends on what, like, health and everything. I have no idea how this whole thing works.
So you get 100 health, you get a pistol, and you get 100 wood. And there's somebody right here. Darn it.
Wonderful. So...
I'm gonna go to the next one. Nope, maybe not.
Oh.
I'm doing this one.
Nope, you're gonna die. Or kill him. Who knows?
Yeah. Nope. Where'd he go? Oh, I didn't build the top thing. Is he gonna... He's not gonna let me do this.
He's not. Right there.
Oh. Oh, I thought I did it.
Oh.
Thought I hit the fire button, but... How much health did he have? Oh, he had quite a bit. He must have popped a couple minis, so... Alright, let's go back.
Alright. How many is that at now?
What? Oh, that's right.
How many is that at now?
What are you talking about? What?
How many matches have we done? Is that 2?
I think that... Well, we did... No, it's 3.
What 3?
Yeah.
You sure?
Mm-hmm. because we did one, and I forgot to update the last one.
Okay, whatever.
Nice hero.
Was my clap synced up with the clap on your screen?
Kinda, yeah. It was.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
Thank you. What if I do a happy?
Guy is just T-posing. Oh yeah, anyway.
I don't know if I want to do like a happy medium with my sensitivity. I don't know.
Hayden. Oh, are you, I don't want to reveal your identity online. I think I might know who you are. Oh, Haunted Hills. That's not what I meant to do, god damn it. Well, I guess that kind of worked out.
Also, at first I thought you were referring to me. Like reviewing my...
No, sorry.
You know, that sneeze, like, really did a number.
Like it felt good?
No, it felt bad. I have like a...
Oh.
I have like pain inside my nose now.
Mm.
And my nasal congestion. I feel like a doctor.
See, yeah, you are. If you sneeze and you talk about how good it felt, then you are no younger than 40 years old, and you have a child, whether you like it or not. This is like it's a stereotype.
Oh.
Thanks for the good luck, Caden. I'll maybe talk to you later.
What are you talking about? Oh.
That's good. Is that just a misfire?
Yep.
Okay. Wasn't there friendly fire? Yeah, there was friendly fire in this game a long time ago, and then they took it away.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not saying I want to kill you, I'm just saying, didn't we used to like prank each other that there was somebody coming, but it was just...
well, we still do that.
I guess, yeah, you're right. Is everything in order? There we go, that's better.
Everything in order? Yes.
I meant like with my load out, like everything, shotgun, SMG, or assault rifle. Then long range, then random item, and then healing. And it is.
I always do
Is that how you do yours?
I do mine shotgun, submachine gun, assault rifle, usually sniper, and then healing.
Yeah. So with the grinder redeploy, because it's an item now, that's just like a passive thing, right? You don't have to, like, if you're falling and you need to use it, you don't have to, like...
Yes, you just
go...
you hit the jump button again while you're midair to use
okay,
it.
so you don't have to, like, hold on, or, like go onto the item. Okay, alright. That's what I was curious about.
Yeah, but you do have to hit it. If you don't hit it, you still fall.
Right, yeah.
Alright, let's start moving. So we don't have a repeat of last time.
Right, yeah. Honestly, I completely forgot about the circle. Forgot that was a thing.
Well, I knew that was coming, but I had a baller, so I was okay with it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I should have healed you, I think, at that first reboot station.
Yeah, you should have, like, stopped me from dying right there.
No, well, I thought it would have been easier. I don't know. It seemed like the right call at the time. Alright.
Can you add, like, TTV, like, as your...
So you have to make an account.
Like, on an Epic Games account?
Like, your account has to have that in it. It's just, they put that in their
Okay,
name.
so it's not like it's... Okay. I forgot about a lot of things, man.
Did you ever check that guy out?
I feel like I know who he is in real life.
No. I
don't want to...
The guy that we died against, and then you like joined it.
Oh, he wasn't live streaming, no, but I followed him and turned on notifications, and one of these days I'm just gonna send him a whisper, which is like the personal message on Twitch, and just say, bitch.
You're not gonna get in trouble for doing that?
I probably will, so I won't actually do that.
That sounds like toxic, like, speech.
Yeah. Yeah, Scooter Games, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, I don't mean any... My intention is not to harm you or your reputation. I just destroyed a tree all the way, I'm a dumb head. Big old dumb head.
Your head's so
you can't. Maybe you're the dumb head. You can't think of anything to say, huh? Dumb head.
No, I wanted to say something nice, you know, because Mama always said, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
Don't say nothing at all. That's a double negative. Dumb head.
Yeah.
Sneaking around. There's been building in here.
Town. Oh, I don't know what to do. Do I want the infantry rifle or do I want this?
I can smell you. Is the infantry rifle good? How much is there one there?
What? A what?
Infantry rifle? Did you take it?
No, I didn't. It's on the top floor.
Top floor. I'm gonna grab it. Oh.
Here, I'll help you up because I don't think you.
For some reason, I think it's better than the. Is it better than the hunting rifle, or should I just?
It is. Well, it uses medium bullets, and it's basically the hunting rifle, but like, you have more bullets.
But more ammunition.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't do quite as much damage.
Where is it? The very top, you said, or what?
No, yeah, one more floor up, I think, from you where you're at. And you gotta get when the storm is coming.
Oh yeah, we do.
You're not very aware of this.
Yeah, I know. I've been told by myself.
We have been told. We've seen his face.
Now the medkit heals for 100, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
But I wouldn't use a medkit. A medkit is something you can hold on to.
Yeah. Much longer. Oh, we're gonna be there for a while.
Beware for a while?
Yeah. Oh, I thought the storm was still moving. Yeah, I guess it's not so bad. Hey, there's one of those things if you want to ride on it.
We don't need it. I mean, do you want it? But...
Nah, not really. I mean, we're fine.
Alright, why don't we do this real quick here?
Do what?
Just go right, let's go right here. Stand here with me.
What are you doing? Oh, you're just building. Jeez. Oh! I see.
Yep. trying to find my email. There it is. Alright.
I'm all healed up.
Okay.
On move out?
Yep. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Oh, that's not what I want either. Alright, away.
Alright. Away! There's building. Nope. I'm just having a seizure. Why did your microphone get all staticky all of a sudden? You're all over the background noise.
I breathed really hard.
I see.
Alright, we gotta get across Loot Lake, so let's see here. Do I wanna... Let's go up to the... do we wanna go to the guys?
Oh, shit. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. There's no one
No,
here.
it's not.
Let's see, is it worth... Let's see.
We're gonna die. No, we're gonna die.
That's it. That's the end of it.
Yep. I just messed it all up. We're gonna die. That's all my fault.
Don.
Grady was playing Fortnite earlier.
Was he?
Yeah, he's not playing NHL.
Somebody,
the hell was that?
Somebody's
Did you
attacking
hear that?
us. Yeah. Oh, they used the rift to go. Are they going to attack us? Yeah, they might be. No.
Are they above? Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're above it. They're not... They took a shot at us. Squirrel, why are you standing still?
I don't know. I'm trying to aim, man.
I mean, that's fine. Just make sure you don't stand still too long.
Jesse, it's been a year since I've won, okay?
Is that the last time you won?
I don't know. I think we won a couple of the times. But remember, the last time that we won as a group was the time that I died immediately.
Oh, that's true.
When I jumped off the tower.
Last time I won was like...
Couple days ago.
Less than a week ago, and it was because it was a squads, and it was my sisters. Do you see that guy to the left? Yep, he sees me.
Oh, God.
I mean to the right, sorry.
To the right.
He sees me here.
It's kind of important which direction you're thinking about.
Yeah, watch out.
What is he firing at? Is that explosive?
It's a bow.
Oh, God.
It's if you get hit by it, it's just like getting hit by a shotgun, so be careful.
Oh, jeez. Well, I got hit by it, so I'm...
There's a guy, I mean, they're still shooting. Ah, he got me a little bit.
Jeez.
I don't have anything like long range. Alright, let's just get this supply drop. Or do you wanna challenge him or no? Somebody's shooting
I'm hitting
us.
some pretty good shots over here.
Are you? Okay.
Kind of.
Somebody's gliding in.
Fighting in behind us?
Yeah, they're not here though. They're coming for us. We gotta move. Squirrel, get up on me. Get on me. Get on me. Get on me.
Shit.
Darn it, Squirrel, get in here quickly. Quickly.
I'm running.
Hurry up.
Yeah.
Get in. Keep coming in. Keep coming in. Alright. Oh, I'm gonna try this.
Oh, we're getting surrounded.
Ah,
No.
I was gonna heal you and then...
Yeah.
Ah. Alright.
Jeez. Alright.
What? I don't know why he kicked me from the party.
Oh.
Actually, now that I think about it, I could have done a smarter move. I could have had them kill you, picked up your player card, and then I was going to use my rift to go. And I could have...
Yeah, that would have been smarter, but whatever. It's all part of the practice.
Are we still practicing?
I mean, have we won yet?
No, but I feel like we should be done practicing.
Jesse, I forgot about the storm 2 games ago. We're still practicing. Are you still live streaming?
I am, yes.
How many people are watching?
I don't think anybody. It doesn't really tell me though unless I look at it.
Let me see if anyone saw my Snapchat on a story. 50 people have seen it, and
50 people? Boy.
50 people
How many people are watching
have seen the story, have seen the Snapchat story. Oh.
I'm gonna check and see if anyone's watching. I doubt it. But
Oh, I think I know exactly who that guy was. He's he's not actually you pick, by the way.
okay.
He's not actually related to me, but his mom is really good friends with my mom.
Okay.
And so yeah, I only know it was him because of looking at my Snapchat. He slipped up on my story and said, "I bet you're pretty bad for it." And considering he had to go to bed at this hour, yeah, he was definitely who that guy was.
Nice. Anyway, I just checked. No one's watching.
It says one viewer, but no, now it says 2 viewers.
Oh, really? On who?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not.
On you?
Oh, yeah, on me.
Oh. No, I didn't know. I was checking me. You probably have viewers. Oh,
What is this place? On these steps? I've never even. Oh, there's another person here.
Where?
He's up by the top. He's by the top temple, the very top.
Which one? That one? Okay, where are they?
The big one.
I see that. Oh, I
I'm
can't.
going farther away.
You are?
Just,
All
yeah,
right,
I'm
so
just.
I shouldn't challenge them.
I just landed, so.
Alright, I'm coming over by you then.
Where did all that stupid? Let me do this quick. That's not what I meant to do. No, I suck at this game. Oh my god. Can't even do the right controls to move things around in my inventory.
Oop, that's not what I wanted.
It's like you can't either.
Yeah, well, I just changed my sensitivity again, so...
Yeah, sure, whatever. Just kidding.
I don't know.
Where are you?
I'm over here.
You guys at the top? Are you by the top one? No, you're further away.
I came by you where you were. But they're over... That's kind of like you're going where they were. I mean, I'm pretty loaded up now. I don't have any shield. Oh, here's some shield. I'm gonna quick grab that, and then we can take them on.
Alright, got a shotgun, assault rifle, pistol, I forget what these things are called.
I don't know. Alright, we can go take them on then, I think.
Impulse grenades. If somebody got this metal, then we're good to go.
Is that the guy? No, that's not a guy. Alright, why don't we stay close then, and...
Oh yeah, let me get over by you. Where are you?
Alright, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna climb the tower, and go... There's
Okay,
a guy
one
right...
sec, yeah. Right above you, I see that.
There's a guy right here. Ah! There he is.
He's below, dude, he's below you.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's behind me.
He's behind me too? Oh, there's a guy. Knocked
Yeah, that's
him.
the guy.
Yep.
Knocked him?
Yep.
Wow, I helped that anyway.
Okay. Alright, where's the other guy? Okay, hang on. Where's he at? Where's he at? He's up there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pop a couple heals if he's just sitting there.
I'm watching him with the pistol.
Okay, keep watching. I'm just gonna reload.
I'm
quick.
moving.
Reloading. Is he still there?
No movement.
He's probably...
I don't see him.
he's probably...
Probably, but I don't.
There he is. If I get aim this better. He missed every shot there, but...
He hit me a couple times.
I can't hit him for some whatever reason. Where'd he go? Did he? Oh, he went away.
I might have impulsed him, to be honest.
Okay. Why can't I hit? That's not him, is it? Alright, let's climb the tower here.
Okay, going up.
Yeah. I'll take this.
We're kind of low on ammo.
That's alright.
Straight a
Do
bunch.
you have a shotgun?
I do have a shotgun.
It's right here.
He's behind us. To our left.
Oh, there he is.
How did I miss every shot of that? I'm pissed.
Is he in there?
He's running.
Yeah, okay. Is he just running?
Maybe?
Where is he? He's probably inside.
Completely lost him. Down there.
Oh, he's running.
Got him! Yes!
Nice. Fantastic.
Killed him.
He's got some good stuff.
He does.
Oh, nice
I'll
shotgun. Take a shotgun.
Minigun, got that. Oh, I'll take a shotgun. I need a better one than what I have.
Nice.
I need more ammo. Do you have assault rifle ammo with chance?
Not that much, but yeah, I can give you some, but...
I can always... Yeah, sure. Just, I mean, let me take a look in here.
I'm gonna go heal
There's
up.
a chest above me. Find that.
Alright, when you get
Storm's
done...
still out there for a while.
Okay, when you get done getting that, make your way up to the volcano.
Volcano. Okay.
Because we're gonna have to go pretty quick here.
Yeah. Alright, I got... I mean, I have a minigun.
Okay, I'm healed. Let's go.
Okay.
I need more.
Alright, towards the volcano.
Shield, yeah. Because if we get up to the volcano, then we will be able to glide away. Oh, here's some healing. Do I want that? Yeah, better take it. Okay.
If you go in the volcano, does that shoot you up in the air, or
yes,
does that kill you?
It's a glide,
okay.
Yep.
It's probably too steep where we're trying to go, or is it...
Here, go to the right. Go in the geyser here. We're gonna have to take a shortcut.
The geyser? Oh, I see the geyser.
We're just gonna take the geysers around.
Oh, what? Oh, okay.
See, I wonder if there's anything over here. Looks like that's been looted already. Well, maybe not. I'm gonna quick hit this up
Don't
here.
close them in, by the way, on that side, so we gotta...
Yeah, I'm just gonna quick loot this place. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
Can you use the cannons to shoot yourself, or is that just a gun?
Yeah, it's cannons to shoot. Alright, I don't really see anything. Alright, you might as well get in the cannon. I mean, we're not gonna stay too long.
Yeah, sure. 1 sec. Ooh, what's that?
That's a suppressed assault rifle. It's really
Oh.
good.
I think I'll take that. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
I want that. Okay. 30 is better than 10, so... Alright, cannon?
Yep.
So which one?
Probably the one that's pointing away.
So, like, this one right here?
Yep.
How do I
there-
get in?
You hit the enter cannon. You point at it. There's also two guys in a baller here. I'm going to land right on top of them. Nice. Yeah, they see me. Alright, try to run away if you can. Oh, never mind. Aye! That's not what I wanted.
Damn!
I should have looked before I blasted out of the cannon.
It's fine.
My bad.
We're still practicing.
still practice run.
Still practicing. Just off season. Yes, I just got 100 free V-Bucks for being good at the game.
Fantastic.
And then 3 more TLs, I get the Hello Friend emote.
Oh, nice.
Can I buy anything from the item shop? Nope. Nothing at all. Alright.
Cheapest thing is the boneless thing.
Boneless.
Bugs.
Is there anyone else like we could play with? Probably not. Everyone's just doing whatever.
Well, Josh said he's getting on late.
Yeah, I don't know how late I want to stay up because I got class at 8.
Oh.
Probably for like, honestly, probably for like another half hour.
Well, we better get a win then.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Especially when it's English. Well, actually, that English class isn't too bad.
Okay, I think it's your turn to choose.
My turn to pick. Let's go. Ooh, I kind of want to go here, but at the same time, it's very close to where that is. So, yeah, let's just go that one. Okay.
You'd be surprised. This is actually a very good drop if you land on the boat. I've had some good luck. Because, like, if you can, like, take it over, there's a bunch of ballers in there, too, so you can get out of there.
Nice.
I think they should remove ballers. Even though they're kind of fun, they're like, kind of OP.
Kind of a nuisance almost.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, oh, this is dumb.
It's like, it's nice to move around that kind of thing, but like, they're annoying towards like the end game, and like you have to like shoot them before you can even hurt the person.
Yep. Oh, there's people there. There's
see.
people there.
Yeah.
There's people there.
All right, I can't land.
Going over to the town.
All right, me too.
Turret. I just picked up.
Nice. That could be
What
useful.
else is up here?
I have not.
Just
found
getting
a
items.
gun
There's no weapons over here.
Usually the town has quite a bit, but I mean, usually the pirate ship has quite a bit too.
I'm just getting like traps and items. What the hell is this?
There's nothing here.
Not even a chest. It's just. Oh my god. Come on, game. We ain't found shit. Over to the right here. Come on, drop the bananas.
Not the bananas.
I know, right? Like, just hold on to your damn bananas.
Also, bananas do healing.
Oh, I see that.
Just
I
in
don't
case.
need any healing, but good to know.
Yeah. Alright, Scroll, I'm coming in.
Alright. I've got a silenced SMG and a
you
will
go.
to live.
There you go, Scroll.
Oh. Oh, thank you so much.
Yep. I got a chest up here somewhere. Oh, and somebody's coming in to say hi.
Where?
I heard them. They blasted it off over here somewhere.
Oh, like they used the cannon to get out?
Yeah, I don't need this Scroll, you can edit.
Oh, revolver. Okay. Wondering what that was before.
Yeah. Alright, where are they at? Where are they at? Where are you at? Where are you people at? I know they
Oh,
blasted.
you have one, I see.
Yeah. They blasted away, which means they got done looting that place.
Dang.
Oh, here comes another guy. He went over there. Where?
Oh, he went on the other side, okay.
Yeah. Alright, let's head up. We get on the...
Yeah, just get out of here.
There's a river, there's a thing up there. So...
Oh, that's really cool how you can move it like that. That's cool.
I went too far!
Enter cannon.
It's alright.
No, I'll enter the cannon, damn it. And then go over... Oh, wait, I gotta steer it. Hang on a sec. was a good launch.
Nice.
Dang, it was a really good launch. Holy crap. Maybe. Nope, I'd lie.
It was a joke.
'Twas a jest, brethren. 'Twas a jest.
I hate how there's like jump cooldown.
There's a jump cooldown?
If you jump too often, if you jump too much in
Oh, I
succession,
see that. Yeah. That does suck.
and then there's like a little ledge that you can't get over because you're like limping. You're like, ugh.
I just need more ammo for my revolver. That's all I want. You open another chest?
Yes.
Oh, bandages, I'll take them.
Oh, squirrel.
Yeah. No, thank you. I always think that pressing L2 is the button for drinking bandages, but it's not.
Drinking bandages.
Oh, God, I just realized what it said. It's like, I'm the big dumb head. Such a dumb phrase. I'm going down in this bunker. No idea what's down here.
I wanna go up to the pirate camp up here.
Alright. Is there lava or something going around?
Yeah, there's lava. Don't touch the lava.
Well, I mean, I kind of figured.
Oh, you weren't here for that limited time mode when we had, don't touch the floor or the ground is lava.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, but this whole area, I see this now, it's all... You just die instantly if you hit it, or what?
No, it does like 2 damage. I mean, you're fine, but... You like...
Fine, but you're not fine.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah, coming back up.
Alright, so Squirrel then, why don't we go for the win? Why don't you come up here?
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. Oh, I don't... There's no,
Alrighty, the pirate camp.
This is
Way up there.
fantastic. Oh, do I want a hunting rifle, though? Or do I want a grenade launcher?
I mean, whichever one you don't take, I'm most likely going to take from you.
Probably take the grenade launcher then.
Alright, I'll take the hunting rifle.
I'm thinking an end game here. Ha, get it? And,
Yeah.
Alright, actually, but there's no... There's not another baller, though. We need to go get a baller.
Do we need to?
Check and see if... Use your scope and see if there's a baller right there.
I mean... I don't think so. I mean, I can't tell from here. It's a big... Do you want to jump, or do I want to cannon over there, or...?
We could. Because there is a baller here already, though.
But do we really need a baller? Like,
we have 2 ballers. They're so nice for rotation.
I know, but like...
Like, they're very, very nice. There's a supply drop over there. Maybe we could hit that up.
See that by the edge of the divot. Is that in the circle?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
There's somebody over there. Take a shot at him. If you can.
I'm not gonna shoot at them. No, we're so far away, dude.
If you have the sniper.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna...
I'm gonna shoot it.
What's the point of... No, Jesse, stop. First off, what is that skin on your assault rifle? What the heck?
I don't know. Kinda cool looking, though.
Yeah, just a bit.
Oh, they're gonna get good weapons, Squirrel.
As if we don't already have it. They built a gigantic fort over there. Probably there's a fight going on.
It's a fight, yeah.
See? Just leave them alone. Let's move on towards the circle. Do you wanna... Are you gonna move this one?
Let's see, do we wanna do that, or do we wanna... Well, let's blast... When you blast, try to blast to the... I'm gonna do that so it, like, stops it. Try to blast to the geyser over there.
Geyser. That, oh, like, kind of... how did you do that thing? That one?
No.
No.
That one.
So, that... oh, that one. Okay.
I think that's close enough. Yeah, that's close enough. We can blast that way.
Okay. Alright.
We'll wait until it's like... Nah, we'll wait until the storm even starts moving.
Sure, yeah.
There's hopefully nobody's there. That's why I like the ballers better, because then, like, with the cannons, it's like, well, you're going.
It's
you're
kind of a blind jump, where it's, yeah, okay.
With the baller, you're kind of like traveling. But that's fine.
Thomas, do you wanna use the cannon and I'll use the baller, or vice versa?
Do you want to do that? If we find another one, we could...
Like how originally?
Huh? What?
Nate just came downstairs and said, Mom needs you. Well... okay.
Oh, there's a guy over there, squirrel. You see him?
What?
Oh, he's...
I do not.
He was over there. He's probably gonna glide away.
Let's just go like over in this direction.
No, because there's a guy there. I want to get the geyser though. There's another guy. Oh, there's one down there too. Alright, anyway. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna, oops, enter cannon. What the heck? Now I gotta move this stupid thing.
Yeah, I'll move mine. Hang on! I can't pause the video game though.
Alright, I'm gonna launch, ready?
Alright, I'm ready.
Launch my marker.
Okay, go.
I did a pretty good launch.
Oh, I went too far. Not really.
No, you're fine. Alright, we're good. Alright, let's pick where we're going real quick. Okay,
oh.
man, guess we're going. Alright, there's a guy there, don't land there. Go to the second geyser where you can get away.
Second geyser. Oh, I see.
That guy's a baller. Alright, that's fine.
Here?
Alright, yep, right. Just go to the geyser, and then hit this final geyser over here. We're gonna try
one over here?
Yep. Hit this one. We're gonna try hitting the edge of the circle here. Actually, go to this building right here. And we'll hide in here for a little while.
Okay.
There's got a shotgun here, I'll take that. Oh, somebody was here, but...
Someone might be here.
Just keep your eyes peeled.
Why do you want to peel your eyes? This is disgusting.
Oh man, glide replay, that could come in useful.
Could.
Do you have glide replay?
I do not.
Okay, well. And do you have an open slot? Probably not.
Nope. I mean, yeah, no.
Alright, let's see if we can rotate to the edge here. Oh, somebody's here. Hang on. They're gliding in. They don't know we're here. Somebody's fighting.
Up the other door. Someone in this another garage.
Let's just wait till they leave. They're leaving.
Are you?
Well, they killed somebody, but they're not gonna see us as long as... Yeah, they're leaving.
Are you right behind me?
Yeah, I'm right behind you. Well, that kind of ruined that plan.
Yeah, but whatever.
Alright, is this in the circle? Can we stay...
Not really.
Oh, there's a guy. Okay, hopefully they didn't see me. Alright, try not to get noticed. Actually, this is in the circle, I think.
Let's try it. Close the door, honestly. Alright, be quiet.
Yep.
Alright, enough.
Okay. You might probably... Well, let me look at the map really, really closely, see if we're in the circle. I think we're gonna barely be in the circle, which is good.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Going for the win. If only we had...
What? Well, I am busy right now. I can't quit. I can't stop. I can't pause. So hang on.
I can't stop. Sound like a drug addiction. I can't stop, okay?
Take that back.
I'm surprised no one has died.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
waiting.
surprised no one's died. Cuts to us like 30 seconds later, dying.
I mean, no one is going to come in here and search in this little tiny bathroom. Like, unless they're the last people, I mean, they're not going to come in here. And if they do, we will show them what
How many
shotgun
materials do you
shells.
have?
I have 5, 3, 1. So
As
five.
in 500, 300, 100?
Yep.
Okay, because I have 5, 42, and 0.
Okay, here it comes.
Oh!
Nice. Now, do we want to position ourselves, or do we want to wait for it?
Let's just wait until it hits like 45 seconds, then we'll position ourselves.
Okay.
Well, wait, actually, let's go at like 50.
I mean, I'm fine with whatever. Let's do the original. Let's go 45. Oh,
Oh.
there's someone fighting. All right, here we go.
You go first.
Okay.
You're the point man.
I'm the point man. All right. Look. Is that you running? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate that so much. This is like the most stealth I've been in Fortnite ever.
Alright, it's a smaller circle now. They're gonna know we're here. So yeah, they already know we're here.
Oh, yep, just like that.
Alright, let's see if we can get to this hill here. Oh boy.
That from the short tower?
No, right here. Right.
Oh
Is that guy over there? Anyway, get right up. We'll build a little tower next to me. Oh, he's got a grenade launcher. I do too, though. Okay. Are you up on me?
No, not really. I mean, kind of, but yeah, no.
Okay. Where are you?
I can't hit. Shit.
I gotta
Throw in gas.
Oh, he's got a rocket launcher. Okay, where are you at? Oh, sorry, scroll.
Alright, just leave me.
Just leave me be. Hey, do you need a shield? I got some shield for you.
I got some bandages right here.
Just take it. Drink those.
Be fine.
Quickly.
Yeah, I know.
Where? Oh, there's a guy over there. Ah!
Oh god.
Now I need that. Alright, hang on. They're gonna rocket launcher us.
Son of a bitch.
We're getting squeezed. We're getting squeezed.
Oh no.
We're getting squeezed.
Holy crap.
Hey, we got the circle though.
Dude, I'm almost dead though.
Hey, scroll.
I gotta heal.
Oh, that's not what I wanted. Scroll right here. Get in here. Get in here. Right.
I can't.
Okay, whatever. Oh, they got the thing. Hold on a second.
Damn it.
Can you help me build, please?
Alright,
scroll right here.
It doesn't really matter.
Right here. Scroll, get back here. You heal.
okay.
I'm almost out of materials, by the way.
Jeez, there's 8 people left.
Yeah. They really hit us hard, though.
Oh god, ballers behind us.
Ballers behind us?
Floor.
Ah!
On the ground.
Stop shooting, you guys. I'm gonna return some fire.
Behind us, you're dead.
Not dead.
Shotgunner.
Ah! 4th place, though. Hey, I got him. Well,
That's probably the best we've done in a while. Alright, I gotta go upstairs for a bit. I don't know what it's all about, so I'll be up. I should be back soon. If not, just let's wait in the lobby. Okay, I'll be back.
I was gonna do a quick game, probably. It's gonna be quick.
Sure. Go ahead. Fine. Just leave and yeah. All right. I'll be back.
Okay.
Hopefully.
let me take too long. Alright, we're gonna do a quick solos then. And then we'll see how it goes, and then we'll go from there. I might get a drink too. Alright, excellent. Wait, how come it's labeled? No, it's not testing new stream settings, it's playing until we win. What? That's weird. I'm gonna have to update that on the stream. Alright, let's go. I'll do it quick and then I'll have to update the stream. Alrighty. Oh, fantastic. I didn't even get that kill. Alright, I'm gonna update the stream on playing night until we win. Hold on a second. I don't know why this isn't this didn't transfer over. Okay, I think that should be good then. And I will be right back. I'm gonna get a drink. hear him like, what is that noise? But it's picking up. It's picking up my noise from my phone. That's hilarious. All right. Well, thanks for waiting. Let's see if Phil is back on. That's not what I wanted. There we go. It doesn't appear so. How long has it been? Let's see. It's been about 10 minutes. Well, I think I'm gonna grab a bite to eat. So I'll see you guys in a little bit then.
Well, it's about time. I texted you. I sent you multiple invites. This is no excuse. Where is your out? You know, we're just going with the regular outfits. You know. No, it's all right. This is the last one anyway. I lost count. That's okay though. We're gonna have to do this again. We're gonna have to do this again. Yeah, with the whole streaming until.
Oh, that's why it wasn't working. My mic was muted on my stream, so I'm gonna have to be careful about that. Okay.
Let me think. Well, I don't know. Is this busy still?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's go like over there.
Okay, I'll go blue. Still love that one part where we jumped to Fatal Fields or wherever that was. And we just turn to your right and there's like 20 people.
Yeah. It could have went better than what it did too.
Yeah.
But that's alright.
Now that we took a break, I've forgotten everything that we're supposed to do.
So, are we going for kills or are we gonna go for the win then this one last time?
I mean, we're gonna have to, yeah.
Alright.
Try and.
So, I mean, basically what that is like you want to avoid engagements that basically it's a lot of hiding.
Is there a face in the side of that mountain?
Yes, once you go over, if you go over by it, it's a challenge.
Is it a battle pass challenge? Because I don't have the battle pass.
Oh, yeah, no, not that, alright.
No, I don't have the battle pass.
Alright, there's a weapon.
Yeah, it looks like we're pretty clear. That's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. You always want to get a weapon. First one to get a weapon usually wins the day.
I've got a shitty weapon. Assault rifle. The heavy assault rifle? Yeah.
Yeah, they should take that out of the game.
They really should.
Nobody likes it. It's literally just that thing that you get when you don't have another weapon.
Alright, yeah, exactly.
Well, it seemed like with a pistol. I forgot how much loot there really is here.
I mean, in a pinch, the pistol is actually okay. But
yeah, I actually have done pretty good at that, but it's usually when other people don't have. Hey, if you find a mini, let me know. Or do you?
yeah, I got one.
Okay, quickly give it to me. Quickly. No, like seriously, quickly. Oh, this isn't gonna work. Quick, drop it. Drop it. Drop it. Alright, drink this now. Good night. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Are you drinking, what is that,
Slurp juice, and I had like a limited amount of time. I'm not
yeah,
gonna. I don't have a full shield now. But that's okay. I didn't make it in time. And we got the circle too, which is, I guess it's a good thing. Yep. I don't really want it. If that's what you're implying. why my dog has been barking for so long now. Let's go do that. So, like, okay, so I put my stream on pause, I guess you could say.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it like... Did it just go to the screen that said, Hunters, we're not there?
Well, yeah, but it says I'll be back. And,
Oh.
anyway, I kept my mic on during it, and so like you could hear my dog barking, and then I walked in the room, and there was like these noises, like the noises of my door opening and me sitting down in my chair, and I was watching my stream on my phone to like remember how, you know, to get back or whatever, and see how I was looking. And then, like, all of a sudden, the noises started getting louder, and they kept repeating. And I'm like, I'm not moving my chair. And then, like, keep going and going and going. And I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? And then I realized I had my phone volume on, and my mic was picking up, like, everything that happened in the stream, and, like, repeating it again. And it's getting, like, more distorted every time. I'm like, what is going on?
What does rebooted mean?
Rebooted was anything.
Oh, that's... Yeah, never mind. That was a dumb question. Why? Wait, was that you?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That was your reaction? Somebody, like, hits you and you're like, oh no, let's go in a circle. I feel like you should be like, oh no, let's run away.
I don't know, I thought, like...
That's fine. Alright, let's see here.
Do they still have golf carts in the game?
No, I think they took them out.
Damn it, that was my favorite vehicle.
They just weren't very necessary, I guess. I mean, they still exist. They just, I don't think they have them in like public matches.
So you could
Maybe.
mess around with them in creative.
Yeah. You might, I don't know, they might be in squads, maybe, but I don't think so.
Interesting. Yeah, this is definitely the last one.
Getting tired already?
Well, I also have to get up at 6 a.m. Well, 6:30 at the very latest.
Okay.
But we have 8 a.m. class. By the way, don't tell this to anyone.
Okay, well, you might not want to say anything because
No, it's not something.
we're live streaming.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's more or less. Make sure my parents don't find out. Remember that 11 o'clock class that I had on Tuesdays and Thursdays that was like right in the middle of our hangout time?
Yes.
Yeah, I had to drop that.
You told me this already, Scrum.
Okay, so well now they can hang out.
You've literally You've literally told me this like 2 or 3 times already.
All right.
Well, you told me once, and then you told. Whoa. You told. Ah!
You good?
No. I keep falling further. You told like Eric, and then I was there for that.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me again.
I mean, it's what's been on my mind, man. It's a big deal to me.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
What is this?
What?
Oh, flowers. There's flowers, never mind.
They're pretty.
I know, I thought it was an item.
Oh. I think you get.
Fucking the oasis.
How did I miss that? Oh, you can't actually hit it.
Can't actually hit what?
The flowers. Or I assume that's what we were talking about. There's a chest? Maybe? No. Oh, there's a chest out in the middle of the water.
Gotta use the bathroom.
Okay. Coconut.
Oh, wrong bathroom.
That's awkward.
Yeah.
Good thing no one was in there. That would have been actually pretty awkward. You like fight somebody in the bathroom and like, ugh, would like shoot him. In this one, in this particular bathroom. Where is that coconut? Did it fall in the water?
Why did? Can you not? Yeah, there we go. Jeez.
Well, I hit a coconut down and it's not in the water anymore.
Someone's taking over the water hole. Hey, Epic Games, thank you so much for making the leaves and the what is this called? Leaves on the bush transparent, so I can actually see what I'm doing.
Wow, I just pulled that parkour off.
Did you?
Yes. Well, you don't have to come over here. I wouldn't come over here if I were you.
Why not? Because I'm a bush? You're being racist right now?
No, I'm just saying the storm's coming.
Oh! That makes sense.
There is a campfire here if you're going to need it, but you should be fine in theory.
That should be fine, yeah.
There's a green pump or tactical shot.
Oh, Josh just said you boys still on, but this is the last one I gotta do. Dang it.
What?
Josh just texted the group chat, he's like, hey, you boys still on?
You should play. You gotta do a squad. Gotta win as a
Sure, we'll do
squad.
one squad. I'm gonna camel this freaking soda.
There's this. I think there might be a chest in this soda can. Yep.
You're right.
Fantastic.
Balloons.
Yeah, how much wood do you get?
134.
All right. Here we're gonna go in this. We're gonna go in the back of this truck here. I'm gonna give you some wood.
Eric and I are getting food in on Beyond. Oh, okay. So they just messaged me on PlayStation.
Food, as in like.
Oh shit! I'm getting shot at.
As in like Taco Bell. All right, cool. Where are they at? Oh, they're just sitting up.
Oh shoot!
How did he get me? I didn't even. Missed. Oh, there's that guy. Nope, that's not the guy. Hey, we're pretty close to the circle, though. Hey, Squirrel, come on over here. Squirrel, get over here.
Who's building?
What? You're not.
Building.
Yeah? Here. Don't worry about them.
Did you drop something for me?
I did, but then I picked it up here.
Thank you.
Just drink that real quick, and then I'll... That's not what I wanted. What? Oh, that was dumb of me. I should have known that. Let's get down. Get down, get down. Watch out for that guy. Hit him once. I don't think these guys are really that good. Do I have a campfire? I do not.
Shit. Here, 1 second.
You didn't drink both of them?
Alright.
There's that guy sitting in there. They're like spamming us. Okay. Buddy. Oh, I gotta reload. Otherwise, I totally would have had that guy.
Shit.
Oh, nice.
That worked?
Yeah,
That was a good placement.
I knocked him. We gotta go now. Gotta go now. Oh, he hit me out of the sky. Alright, you gotta win this, squirrel. You gotta win it.
Shit, I'm getting shot out of the sky.
Alright.
I'm in the tree.
Okay. Hopefully they'll leave then. And you can get me when I'm in the storm. Oh, you don't have much health.
Damn it!
Oh, no.
Yeah, no. And I had drinking a chug jug before, or a slurp juice beforehand, and I guess it stopped reviving.
Well.
Well, I guess we'll do one last one.
What if
We'll just have to wait until they get on.
I bet you they're going to take long enough where we can do one more.
I don't want to do one more while we're waiting. I want to... They might want to do the end game mode, I have a feeling.
Oh, really?
Well, I just have a feeling. I don't know if I for sure want to. Neither of them are on yet.
Yeah. I'd rather do squads, I guess. But...
Yeah, I mean, me too. We change to a different... Change to a different, more... Do you remember if there's a... Is there an advantage... Oh, wow, your skin, jeez. Is there an advantage to having an umbrella glider versus like the normal style glider?
You install fear in those who see you.
Don't have one? Good.
It's like the umbrella glider is awarded to those who win. So like
right, yeah.
So when you win it in a season, you get that season's umbrella glider.
I see.
So like,
okay, that makes sense.
For me,
so then
like,
I've won 2 times.
You also get one just for winning. So you get like here. Let me see if I can find mine here. So like you get a blue one, the umbrella it's called. You get that one for just winning in general, and you got that the first time you won. And then you also get that season's one. So if you have 2 of them, I assume you just won the once or one. You won, even if you won once.
I have the umbrella, and then I have the paper parasol, and then I also have wet paint.
Wet paint. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I guess I must have won twice.
I think you won a few times, but if you win more than once in the same season, it doesn't matter for that.
Right, yeah.
I have, it's a paper parasol, I also have wet paint, and I have the umbrella, but I also have the beach umbrella, which is season 5, the web umbrella from season 6, and then I have the palm leaf from season 8. So, quite a few different ones. I missed season 7, because season 7 stunk. See, I think they're going to take a little bit. Okay, we just got to try really hard here.
No, let's just do something quick and ballsy. So just go to like paradise.
What if we? Well, let's go for the because I feel like there's gonna be just a little bit. So let's go for the win, but then as soon as they're like, okay, we're on, then we'll do something really ballsy.
I just want to do something ballsy right off the top.
All right.
Let's go to.
We want to.
I've actually never been to Paradise Palm before, I don't think.
Really?
Let's go there. Maybe like once, but not long enough to have the memory of it anyway.
I wonder what they're gonna do next season. So, like, the thing that's been going on is there's like something with Loot Lake and like some kind of something is popping up, or like I forgot what it all was, but it's something with Loot Lake and like an underground bunker or something.
All right.
I don't know the full story. If you go to Loot Lake, they've just been doing some things.
Okay.
But I definitely like the area that they added in the top right of the map. Just kind of like the jungly area. You know, the tropical-esque.
Yeah.
And when they made the snow, I always wanted them to make like a snow world too, but like after they did it, I'm like, I don't like the snow.
Yeah.
Alright, is anyone here? This is so weird that no one's here. Usually this place is like so busy. Oh, there is somebody here.
I've got a pistol.
I knocked him, squirrel. There's a guy in this house. Right here. Get him. Go get him.
1 second.
Go get him.
Hey.
He's knocked, so just go get him.
Alright, I get it.
His teammates is there.
Where was that? Okay.
Yeah. His teammate... Okay, he's dead. His teammate is over there. I'm trying to give you some area support. Do you see him?
I hear him.
Okay.
Hit him once for 42.
Okay. You should be able to take him, I would think. I'm not really... I'm gonna try to give you some area support. Got him for 26. He's on the roof, Squirrel. He's on the roof. He's on the roof. Is he still in there? No, he's on the bottom now. He's on the bottom. He dropped down. I just see this all going on, like, from a distance.
Got him!
Nice.
The
Fantastic.
scopes. That was a clean shot.
Squirrel, you deserve some victory juice. Why don't you come here when you're ready?
That was...
Never mind, I need
Yeah,
it.
when you're ready.
I now need that.
Take it. Just go ahead.
I do have some shields for you, though.
Yeah, sure.
See if we can find some minis, though, because it's a big shield that I have.
That's fine.
Actually, I have 2 big shields. 3 big shields now, so even if you don't find a mini.
Hey, look, a better assault rifle. And the heavy.
Oh. Well, literally anything.
Yeah. We're pretty far from the storm, but we should just get moving.
It should be a rift, I think. Otherwise, I have a rift to go now. Whew. I don't have a shotgun, though. That's the only thing.
Oh, I just found a shotgun.
Nice.
Trying to juggle it over. Let's use the rift. Ooh, wait.
Wait.
Ooh, there's a vending machine here. I've never used them before.
Oh yeah.
Um.
I would go with the shield. Unless...
Honestly, yeah, that's
Or the
really the
sniper.
best.
No, the sniper is the best. Can I have the sniper?
Sure, because I have a sniper.
Well, can I take the sniper then?
Fine, go.
I mean,
You have to claim it.
all right, and here you go, Scroll. You can have that.
Wait, did you just have 3?
Yeah, isn't that cool? Let me do it again. It sounded so cool.
Alright, I'll give it back. Alright, we'll use the rift to go pretty soon. Hang on a sec.
Well, do we want to keep that though? There might be a rift over here. Let me double check.
Well, hang on a sec.
I don't see it. I think they.
Bandages or do you want how much do you have a slot left or not?
I have a slot left, but probably for the rift to go. I mean, well, that's fine. I can have a slot. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want the shield or do you want?
I'd rather the shield. I'd rather have the shield to be honest, but. All right, you ready?
Okay.
We're just gonna head
Wait one sec.
You gotta hurry. We don't have time. We don't have time.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
All right, ready?
Where are we going?
Just to the circle, so probably like right on the edge here, so we can hide behind the mountain here when we get out of it.
Yeah. You're a bit higher up than I am, so you probably get further.
Well, hit that right there.
Is that an outpost? It is. No, it's not. House. It's a geyser.
Oh wait, is that a trap? I'm gonna get the trap.
I'm gonna keep moving.
Okay. There's also some ammo. Ah!
What? Oh, did you get blown in the air?
Yeah, that's annoying.
I landed right here, so.
Alright, just keep moving. I don't have much time to do this here. And also,
Okay,
why did
I'll keep moving.
Let's see, what was that? That was shotgun ammo. Alright, I'm on my way. Keep going.
Yep.
I would just keep
Baller.
going. Where? Oh, right there?
Yeah, just keep going.
Ignore if you can. Keep an eye on them, though. They're shooting at somebody.
Keep on top to the southwest.
There's shooting going on, but it's not at us.
Right.
And we gotta get in the circle, it's the most important thing. Even if once we get in the circle, we turn around and we take them, but it's super important. Now watch out for anyone coming out of the storm here. Like right now, that guy there.
Oh, well, that guy? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, he's right there. I'm dumb.
Knocked him. I'm also about to die. There's a guy there? Oh.
Okay,
They're actually, let me see what he's got. Why did I knock him? Does he have a friend? Alright, I see this guy. He's got shield. Better weapon here. Pump shotgun. Got shield. Oh, you're knocked?
You might want to... Yeah, I'm knocked. You might want to run.
You think? No, I can do it. You're gonna have to run. I got some bandages.
Okay.
You're gonna have to run though fast. There's some more shooting. Go to the left, please. Actually, I'm gonna drink this shield really quick.
Same. I'll string it on mine when I get there.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna heal up real quick here.
Okay.
Don't drink yours. Never mind.
I did. Sorry.
I'm juggling this. Oh, poop, that's not what I wanted.
What is this? What is this?
Oh, I dropped. No, it's not. I need that. Poop.
What is it?
It's bandages. Oh, no. No, 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 no.
You got half of this still. Let's go. Come on.
We don't have... What? Oh, we gotta move like crazy. And there's some guy over there. Alright.
I can't make it to the top right there.
That's fine. How are we gonna get out of here? This is... I'm not gonna make it. How are we gonna make it?
I don't know. Just...
There's a guy over there. Should I take a shot? He's in a baller.
No.
How much? You don't have much health either.
Right. I don't have anything to heal all over here.
Well, I got bandages. There's a guy right there.
We've been temporarily separated. I see that.
Oh, did I miss?
Why did you shoot? Why did you shoot?
He's just running. He doesn't care. Alright, keep an eye for anything that could help us heal. See what's in there.
Shotgun shells.
That's fine.
Oh, you're right here.
Yep,
Cool.
right here. We're not gonna make it in time. We're gonna have to find something. What's the best course of action? We're gonna have to play that game where like you heal me, then we run for a little bit, and then.
Oh god, I hate that.
Alright, we don't have time to use the stairs. Can I reload that? Yeah. There's a guy that just glided away.
See that?
Too bad we couldn't. Dang it, there's like nothing here. Ah, wait, chest. This could come in handy. Anything. Nothing. Okay. It's too bad we don't have like a launch pad.
Right, yeah.
Wait, vehicle right up here. We can get pretty far. You gotta jump
Vehicle?
in. Yep, vehicle. You gotta get in right away though.
Oh god, I'm not gonna make it.
Squirrel, can you heal up?
I don't have anything to heal.
Dang it.
Hurry, hurry.
I don't know if I wanna. Should I wait?
Hurry!
Okay.
Yo!
Where'd the vehicle go?
It's right there!
Oh. Alright. Alright, so we're gonna play the game then.
Oh god.
Alright, get in the vehicle.
So what?
Now you're gonna heal me.
What's it?
Get in!
Go!
Go on. Alright, I'm gonna die here in a second. Or should I just use my. Well, no, I'm gonna die. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, I gotta stop. Alright, get out. Heal me.
Get up! Get off! Get off! Get off! Get off!
Heal me quickly.
Yes.
Do you have
I know.
Do you have more than 10 health?
I have 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my god!
Wait, should I wait? Maybe no. All right.
No,
you
just go.
Oh, is it gonna tick for 2 now? This is not good. Not good.
Oh
Here's
no!
Squirrel. Just take this and heal up. Just like as you're on the back. Get on the back. Get in the back. Get in the
Okay,
back.
okay, I'm back.
Go. Darn it! All right, just go. Just go. Yeah, I don't. Or maybe you should. No, I mean you can try coming back. We're close, aren't we? No, we're not. Now you're
no, not really.
You're just leaving me behind. All right, goodbye. You press jump, I think.
Oh god, get back. Yes.
No, Squirrel!
I timed that wrong. I lost track of the time. We weren't gonna win anyway. What's the point?
Well, we could have won.
Doubt it. Alright, let's go back up to lobby. Hopefully they're on now.
Hopefully.
Oh, I see. What time is it? Oh god, it's 11:43. I can't stay up. No, I gotta go. I'm sorry. I can't. It's gonna take too long to wait for them to get on, and I need to go to bed. So
Alright.
you can wait for them, but I really have to go. So
Alright.
talk to you later.
Yeah, have a good night.
See ya.
Alright, I'm gonna go into squad and try to get top 6. To get that challenge out of the way. It's been sitting there for so long. Well, I thought I was gonna get to tier 100 this weekend, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. I could do it. Where is it? Squad fill. I mean, I guess I still could, in theory, get to tier 100 tonight, but likelihood of that happening is not good. I have to do this more often. Pump out the the 90s. Oh, I forgot to update the how many tries. I can do that afterwards. Alright, I'm literally just playing to survive right now, so... So I probably want to jump pretty late. Go to Jump Junction. I gotta get top 6 in squads, so... Should be... This is gonna be a lot of waiting. A lot of sitting around and waiting. I don't know why I can't focus right now. Maybe I'm just tired. Could be it. Alright, well, I might as well take my time here. No one's gonna be here. I want to get a lot of healing so I can stay in the... I'll come back, I'll see what else there is. If I get a lot of healing, I won't have to use that healing, otherwise we should probably take it. Some healing. I also want to get a lot of materials. Maybe I should just do all healing. I guess I do have to drink up first though. Gotta get max health before I can do anything here. Maybe I get lucky and I'll win because of the storm. Healing. Switch that out. Does this give enough? Not really. 10 metal. Ooh, a shotgun. I would need a shotgun. Heavy assault rifle, so I think I'm gonna get rid of that. I could get a better one. That's assuming that I was gonna fight people. I'm really planning on doing that. I'm literally just gonna play to survive. It's a... Did I find this early? I'll have to remember that. So I have 2 minutes to run all the way across. Enter a chest. I'm gonna grab this. Yes. Now I just need medkits. And I will be good. What is that? Somebody put that up there. I can use campfires too. I don't have any campfires, but if I so needed to, I could use campfires. But yeah, I'm just gonna take my time here. Somebody was definitely here and was here decently recently. A glider redeploy would be awesome too. Well, I'm pretty much gonna live in the storm then. Definitely gonna have to continuously heal and that kind of thing. If I had a campfire, that would be superb. I doubt that they're gonna have a campfire here though. I should probably grab this actually. What? What? Did I just break it? What? Anything in there? Not really. Oh, more bandages, I guess. Guess I could heal up real quick. Alright, how far do I have to go? Pretty far. But nothing I can't handle, I guess. Okay, use the rift. I didn't realize how far this really was. It's getting kind of annoying actually. It's annoying that I can't run fast enough. I'm gonna have to use one of those. Alright, I'll do it when I have 20 health left. I'm gonna have to use this slurp juice. But I'm gonna try to do it when I get out of the storm here. Probably shouldn't be doing that right now. At least this will be a shorter run then. I have to use one of these here. Alright, let's start running. No, 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 there. Great, how am I supposed to get up there? There's a big hill. too much wood. Maybe the chest will have something good for me. Nice. Let's see, do I want to take that instead? There's a campfire. Could use that. And there's probably some people building there. People in that hut there. Yep, they're definitely there. Okay. They're gonna get that supply drop. I'm gonna have to nonchalantly go across this thing. And head up here. Isn't there a door on here somewhere? There we go. Alright, again, I'm not here to... Darn it. Try to get in a circle. I want to do so as discreetly as possible. There we go. So all I have now are these few bandages and shield. Oh, nice. Oops. Still haven't gotten that down yet. Alright, there's 13 people left. I mean, in theory, top 6 would be there's 24 people left. So in theory... Oh. In theory, I should have done it. But you never know. There's a reboot ban, but I don't have any squad mates to reboot. Allow to redeploy, that could definitely come in handy. I think I'm going to take that instead of the shield. There was a chest in there. Let me take a bowler. Oh, dude, supply drop. Baller. It's taking forever to land. Deja vu, I guess. Down 7 people, so it's probably a squad and me. Is it seriously gonna make me move it? Nice. At this point, I'm gonna take the medkit. Scoped revolver. Yeah, I could. But I don't think so. Take the healing instead. Alright. The odds that I am not top 6 are very low. Might be in the circle, but it's not. Oh, rift to go. I'm gonna take that instead of medkit. There's a chest up here too. Don't really have time to do it though. Maybe unless it's another rift to go. Yeah, you can't hold more than 2, I guess. Oh, you know what though? I'm gonna go like this. I'm gonna drink one. And I'm gonna take another one. That way, its effects should continue. Oh shoot. Man, that's for a lot there. I could be the last one. Is this even in the... Maybe I should have brought... I gotta drink that other slurp juice. I have nothing to hit him with. Just gotta remember I have a rift to go. What the heck? Why is there an invisible wall here? Where's that other guy at? Oh, there's that guy. Ah. No, I didn't use the rift. I should have used the rift to go. Why didn't I use the rift to go? I should have used it. He would have got that, and then I could have got him. That's unfortunate. Why isn't that? Okay. I don't know if they're gonna get on or not, but I think that's gonna be the end of it there. Update that for how many we did. Pretty sure everyone went to bed. So, it was fun. We tried. In the end, we didn't get a victory royale today. I didn't get a win. But we'll get them next time. Have a good night.